But it's all stuff we've had in the chapter. First question is, how many percent is 2 out of 4 as a percentage? Well, 2 out of 4 we know is the fraction, 2/4, which is the same as 1/2, which is the same as the decimal, 0.5. And to change any decimal to a percentage, we just move the decimal point 2 places to the right, so we get 50%. 1 point. Then the next one, just leading on from that, was, okay, what about 2 out of 8 then? Well, 2 out of 8 is the same as the fraction 2/8, which we know is 1/4, which we know is 0.25, which we know to change to a decimal, move the decimal point 2 places to the right, so it's 25%. We could also see that a quarter is half of a half, so it would be half of 50%, so we could have also gone straight by taking 50% and dividing it by 2 to get 25. Then it says, what about 2 out of 16 then? Well, we know that 2 out of 16 is 2/16, which is the same as 1/8, which is actually half of a quarter. It's the same as a half of, if we divided 0.25 by 2, we'd get 0.125, which is the same as 12.5%. Okay. So if we were to have a circle here, and say, here's the whole of it, how much as a percentage would a quarter of it be? The whole of it is 100%. So if we were to split this up into 4 circles, there'd be 25% here, 25% here, 25% here, and 25% here. So here's our quarter, 25%. Here's our half of it, would it be 25 plus 25? Here is our 1/8. We'd take 25%, divide it by 2, giving us 12.5%. So if we think of 100% as just being the whole thing, and then we can split it up into different amounts, halves, quarters, eighths, quite easy to do. Right, that was the first one. There's 3 points for each of those, one for the 50%, one for the 25%, and one for the 12.5%. Then it says, write the numbers as a percentage. A, B, C. 0.40, 0.4, and 0.04. You should notice that these and these are exactly the same number. We could write as many zeros as we like there if we wanted. They go on to infinity. Okay, so 0.4, to change any decimal number to a percentage, we move the decimal point 2 places backwards, giving us 40%. So 0.4 as a decimal is 40%, 0.40. 0.4 is the same thing, but wherever we've got a gap, we fill in the 0 that really wasn't there, but it should have been. It can be. So we still get the same answer there, 40%, 40%. 0.04, we move the decimal point 2 places to the right, giving us 4% as our answer. And 1 mark for each of those as well. So giving you this nice slow introduction, have you understood what's gone in the chapter? Then it says, okay, let's start using our percentage finally. How much is 60% of 300 kronas? And there are lots of different ways of doing this. We could write it as we say it. We could say 60% of 300. And then we just got 2 zeros here, which could cancel with 2 zeros here. It would give us 60 times 3, 180 kronas. We can write it as we say it, or we can think of 60%, we know it's the same as the decimal 0.6. 0.6 of 300. This one we can move the decimal point 1 place this way and 1 place that way, to say that 0.6 times 300 is exactly the same as 6 times 30. 6 threes are 18, so 6 times 30 must be 180 kronas. 6 threes are 18 and the 0 carries over as well. So either of those ways is fine. But the answer should be 180. Okay, now we've worked out what 60% is. We do the same thing now with 6%. Do it as we say it. 6% of 300. We have 300 up here divided by 100 down here. The zeros cancel. So we just get 6 times 3, which is 18 kronas. Which is what we would expect, because 6% is a factor 10 smaller than 60%. So we would expect the decimal point to go one place back. We'd expect 18 kronas. And then we have, oh, it was 6% of 30 kronas in the question. Whoops, sorry. Stop me when I do the question wrong, guys. So what we should have had here, let's go back here. We were supposed to do 6% of 30 kronas. That'll teach me for not putting my glasses on to read the question. So 6% of 30 kronas, we can use this technique. What do we get then? 6 threes are 18. 18 divided by 10 on the bottom gives us 1.8 kronas. Okay? Or we could have done 0.06, that's the same as 6%, multiplied by 30, which is the same as 6 times 0.3, which is the same as 1.8 kronas. And you can do it whichever way you like there. And I wish I had a better pen. Let's see if this one goes into there. That's a bit better. Then the last one, and I'll read it properly this time. Okay. What about 0.6% of 300? I would expect 0.6% of 300 to be exactly the same as 6% of 30. But let's see. So we'll use 0.6% of 300. Write it as we say it. We have 2 zeros up here and 2 zeros down here that cancel, because 100 divided by 100 is 1. And then we end up with 0.6 times 3. 6 threes up we know are 18, but we had a decimal point here in the question. We have to put a decimal point back in the answer. So it's 1.8. Because if we'd had 6 times 3, we would have got 18. When we've got 0.6 times 3, put the decimal point back in, we get 1.8. It wouldn't be reasonable that 0.6 of 3 could be 18. So always think whether your question, whether the answer that you get is reasonable. 1 point for each of those as well. And if I'm going too fast, slow me down. Then we have another question, and it says we've got class 7A, and they have 15 boys, and they have 10 girls. So what do we know about the number of pupils? We know that they have 25 pupils. So let's look first at was it the boys first? Yep, boys. A, boys, percentage of boys is going to be the number of boys we have, which is 15, divided by the number we have in total. Total number of pupils. 15 divided by 25. Times it by 100 to turn it into a percentage, or make 100 on the bottom, because remember, if we can make 100 on the bottom, we get the percentage answer directly. This is nice and easy to make into 100. Multiply top and bottom by 4. You get 60. 15 times 4, double 15, it's 30. Double it again, it's 60. Divided by 100 on the bottom, which is the same as 60%. So when you get this nice 100 on the bottom, it makes these calculations easy. You should always be trying to do that if you can. Next one then, what about the percentage of girls? Well, we have 10 girls. Out of this still, we have 25 pupils. Let's change it to hundredths on the bottom so that we get the percentage directly. 10 times 4, 40, 100ths, which is 40%. In a way, we didn't really need to show this as a calculation, because we know if there's 60% of boys, we know there has to be 40% of girls, because we've got no boy-girls in the class, have we? You've either got to be a boy or a girl. Yep. So this one we could have just worked out by subtraction. 100 minus 60% is 40, so therefore there must be 40% girls. And that would have been fine in this question to answer like that. But so 1 mark for 60%, 1 mark for 40%. Now we started, percentage reductions. And I'm going to write the standard formula up here on the top so I don't have to write it every single time. Percentage reduction is the difference in price, percentage change, divided by the original price, times 100 to make it into percent. And I really don't seem to have a very good pen. Let's try this one. 4th time lucky. Okay, so the first one was original. Was 400 kronas. The new price, 200 kronas. So we use our formula, percentage reduction, I'll just call it that, equals the difference in price, 400 minus 200, all divided by which was the original, go back, double check, make sure you put the 400 on the bottom, times by 100 to change it into percent. So we get 200 over 400 times 100, which we know it's going to be 0.5 times 100, which is 50%. Okay, so the percentage reduction was 50%. We got half price off. We can see that really from the question. But we're just using the formula anyway to show that we're super smart and we know how to use the formula as well as just being able to see the answer. Got to show our working out. The original price was now, for B, the original price was 500 kronas. And the new price was 300 kronas. So what's the percentage reduction now? Same formula. Percentage reduction is the difference in price, 500 minus 300, divided by the original price, which was 500, times 100%, to take it into percent. So we get 200 over 500. And if we actually take this and divide top and bottom here by 5, look what happens then, being a bit sneaky here. Here we'd get 100 on the bottom. And we know that if we get 100 on the bottom, we've actually got our percentage answer. So if we divide 200 by 5, we get 40 on the top. So we know that this is the same as 40%. Okay? So that's one way of doing it, or you can cancel the zeros and use the other ways that we showed you before as well. Either way will work fine. If we hadn't done that, we'd have kept it as 200 divided by 500 times 100. The zeros here would have cancelled, or the zeros there, it wouldn't have mattered. And we got 200 divided by 5, which would have been 40. So either way is going to give you the right answer. Okay, then our next one. We had an original price of 800 kronas. And the new price was 200. If this was a pair of jeans, this was a pair of jeans that I'd like to buy. Okay? So what's the percentage reduction? We got a big price reduction here. 800 minus 200 divided by 800, original price, times by 100 to take it into percentage. So we get 600 over 800 times 100. We know that 600 over 800 is 6/8, which is the same as 3/4 times 100. We see 3/4 and we know that it is 0.75 times 100. It's 75%. So the biggest percentage reduction was in question C, where the original price was 800 and the new price was 200. 75% reduction. Okay, that was all the percentage reduction questions. Then we moved on instead to how much is 100% if 20%, we don't need this formula anymore. If 20% is 50 kronas. And there's different ways of doing this one. I'll show you the easiest way, I think. 20%, if we want to go from 20% to 100%, it's really quite easy. We just times by 5, yeah? That would give us 100% on this side of the equation. If we did the same thing on the other, okay, I've gone multiplied by 5 here, I therefore have to multiply by 5 here. 50 times 5 is 250 kronas. So 100% would be equivalent to 250 kronas. If 20% is 50, that's the same as 1/5 of it. If 1/5 of it equals 50, then 5/5 of it equals 250. What we also know is the algebraic way of doing it, 20% is the same as 0.2. 0.2 of the original price, x, and we don't know what x is. But we do know that 0.2 of x, 20% of it, equals 50 kronas. So if we'd like to work out what is x here, we divide both sides of the equation by 0.2. Why do we do that? Because here we get 0.2 divided by 0.2, which is 1. So we get what one lot of x is. So we get that x, this price that we're trying to find, what's the whole amount of it? It's 50 divided by 0.2, which is the same as 500 divided by 2, which is the same as 250 kronas. On this particular question, it wasn't much easier to do it like this, but it can be when you've got very strange numbers, when they give you like 16% of something like that. So this can be a useful technique. That was A, 250. If we look at question B, it says 40% is 50 kronas. 40% is 50 kronas. Well, if we were going to do this, I think the easiest way is to go from 40 down to 10% by dividing by 4, because that's easy to do, isn't it? So now we know what 10% is if we divide the 50 by 4. If we divide 50 by 4, we get 4s into 5, go 1 time, 1 left over. 4s into 10, go 2 times, 2 left over. 4s into 20, 5 times. So we get that 10% is 12.5 kronas. We now know what 10% is. We can get 100% quite easy by multiplying by 10. 10 times 10 is 100%. 12.5 multiplied by 10, we do the same thing on this side that we've done on this side, is 125 kronas. To do it the algebra way, what we would say here is 0.4 is the same as 40% of x, the whole price. X is the whole price and we don't know what it is. But 0.4 of the whole price equals 50 kronas. So to get what x is, we divide both sides by 4. We then get what one lot of x is 50 divided by 0.4, which is the same as 500 divided by 4, which is 125 kronas. We get the same answer. Okay, and then the very last one of these anyway is we have calculate 80% of 50 kronas. Well, the simple way would be to divide first by 8 to get what 10% is, and then multiply it by 10 to get what 100% is. If that's what we're going to do on this side, we're going to do the same thing on the other. So 10% we've divided by 8. We divide 50 by 8. 8 into 50, 6 8s are 48, 2 left over. 8 into 20, go 2 times, 2 8s are 16, decimal point in the right place. 2 8s are 16, so there'd be 4 left over. And then we'd get 8 into 40, giving us 6.25 kronas. If we then multiply that by 10, so first we divide it by 8, then we multiply by 10, we'd get 62.5 kronas. And for those of you that would like to try the algebra way, what you'd get here, that is 0.8 of x equals 50. And then try and solve that. 0.8, 80% of the whole price is 50 kronas. What is the whole price? What is 100% of x? What is 1x? Using the same method. Now we have a question on comparative percent. Now we're comparing our percentages. We have a 5 krona coin. Big shiny silver one. And then we have the little yellow gold one. 10 krona. And the question is, how much more value is the 10 compared with the 5? How many more percent is the 10 compared with the 5? We know the formula for comparative percent. I'm running out of options here when it comes to pens. We know the formula for comparative percent. It's the what? It's the percentage. Comparative percent is the difference in price again, dividing by the one you're comparing with, times 100. So what we're doing here is we're taking the difference in price, which is 10 minus 5. We're comparing it with the 5, so we know that that's the one that goes on the bottom. So how much more money do we have of the is the 10 krona worth compared with the 5 kronas? And then we multiply by 100% to change it into a percentage. So we get 5 over 5 times 100, which is 100%. So the 10 kronas is worth 100% more than the 5 kronas. And that's right, isn't it? It's double it, so it's worth 100% more. If we were to change this then for question B, and it was to say how much less is the 5 kronas compared with the 10 kronas. So we're using the same formula, the difference in price, minus 5, divided by, and now we're comparing it with the 10 kronas, so the 10 goes on the bottom, times 100. So we get 5/10 times 100, which we know is 0.5, times 100, which is 50%. So, and that's realistic as well, isn't it? Because we're expecting the 5 kronas to be half what the 10 krona is worth, if we're comparing it with the 10 krona. So which one you're comparing it with gives you really different answers. One gave us 100% and the other gave us 50%. And that's really what they want you to understand after having worked on all these questions in the chapter. Comparative percent. And important with the one you're comparing to should go on the bottom. Makes a big difference to your answer. Then our final one is, we're going to buy a TV screen now. No, a TV. Ordinary price 6,400 kronas. But just to you, my friend, sale price minus 15%. Okay? Minus 15%. What's the easiest way to do this one? Well, we know that 100% equals 6,400 kronas. Let's think of the easy ways of getting 10% and 15%. 10% is quite easy to get, isn't it? 10% would be equivalent to 640 kronas. We just move the decimal place back one place. So we know that 10% is 640. 5% is really easy to get from 10% because that's just divided by 2. So that 5% is 320. But 10 plus 5 is 15. So if we add these two together, it gives us that 15% equals 960 kronas. Now we know that we're going to get a discount of 960 kronas. How much are we going to pay? Well, we're going to pay the original price, and you should have your formulas in here. I'm doing it a little bit quick because it's soon lunch. The formula would be original price minus discount will give us the amount that we pay. So amount you pay equals original price minus the amount that you get in discount. 0, 0. Here we don't have enough. We can't take 6 away from 0, so we have to borrow 1 from the 4. 10 minus 6 is 4. 3 minus 9 we can't do either, so we have to borrow 1 from the 6. It turns it into a 5. 13 minus 9 is 4, and 5 minus 0, 5. So we would pay for this television 5,440 kronas. And I think that one's worth 2 points. And that was it.